medium-term budget policy statement comes against the backdrop of a challenging economic environment. The global economy is slowing and financial conditions are also tightening. The cost of living is rising as a result of the increasing food and fuel prices exacerbated by the war in Ukraine. The National Treasury is expected to revise downward expected growth as the intense load shedding continues to drag growth. It's expected, however, that revenue expectations will be higher than February estimates. Economists say personal income tax and value-added tax remain robust. Corporate income tax is supported by a boom in commodity prices that lifted revenue from mining houses.
South Africa is in for a sustained period of low economic growth for the reasons that you've mentioned. And to that, of course, you have to add the fact that Eskom cannot supply on an uninterrupted basis enough electricity for the economy. So the government should be prudent and plan for low and sustained low economic growth. The government would be bluffing itself and the South African taxpayers if the government gives an impression that the economy will grow at a much faster rate. Unfortunately, South Africa's growth potential has now declined to between 1% and 1.5% per year on a sustained basis over a period of time. Government must accept that, plan accordingly for at least the period of the MTBPS, say the next 3 or 4 fiscal years.
Top among government's competing priorities is Eskom's 400 billion rand debt. Government has also been pressured by lobby groups to introduce a universal basic income grant, a move some say the state can ill afford. Labor unions are also putting pressure for a higher wage settlement.
On the expense side, unfortunately, it's been tough. The big ones there, like you've mentioned, is the wage bill and the negotiations about salary increases. Currently that makes 40% of the budget excluding interest payments. So it's a huge part of the budget. So if we can't get that under control, then that again, take money away from where we need to spend on things like infrastructure and healthcare and the likes. The other thing that we're quite big this year is further support to a lot of the SOEs. And also relief during the KZN floods. And we're now in a situation where, Transnet is also looking at potential support. Otherwise, they might become another Eskom, so to speak. So government expenses are definitely under pressure. And that's why, in terms of wage negotiations, obviously you want to avoid strikes as far as possible. But you want to get to something that's sustainable so that we can actually get the debt to GDP under control.
The fiscal deficit and debt ratios will likely show some improvement on the back of better than expected revenue collection, but higher debt levels and servicing costs remain a problem.
We think that debt and deficit ratios will come out significantly lower than we previously forecast. This obviously is a move towards fiscal consolidation for South Africa, and also, of course, as well, will affect the next couple of years as well. However, there is, of course, the risk of higher borrowing costs persisting for longer, and no doubt National Treasury will factor this into the expenditure and revenue forecasts, which will cut out some of the downward movement that we might have seen in the fiscal indicators.
Economists say if government continues with the right structural reforms, like the interventions in energy generation recently announced, the economic growth could likely lift to levels that could make a difference to socio-economic challenges. Gloria Sefakomosi, SABC News, Johannesburg.